Well, hello everyone. I've been battling the flu, but hey, show goes on. Welcome to the Dr. Charles Show. Do you know, it's really interesting. About a year ago, I mentioned geopolymer, and no one knew what it was. People were saying, what am I talking about? You can't pour a stone. A stone is a solid. How can you pour a solid? That's not going to work. But now, I mentioned geopolymer, or recently, or other people mentioned geopolymer. Everyone knows what it is. This is the work of Joseph Davidovich, which I was talking about. I read it in a book, put it on the internet, and people are talking about it now. This is unbelievable. So we are pushing science forward. Geopolymer companies are springing up left and right just because of the internet and the awareness of just putting ideas out there. I think it's a great thing. Now, it's the same with Electric Universe. About 10 years ago, I started reading the Thunderbolts website and I thought, my God, these guys are clever, these guys are geniuses. They have come up with a correct, plausible, logical, easily believable model of how the universe seems to operate on a galactic level, maybe even on a universe-wide level if they push the theory further. I mean, I think the Thunderbolts stuff is unbelievable. Now, science, as we know, advances by talking about things. But where does this leave, say, the science of Einstein? Good old Einstein. He's got the chalk, the equations on the blackboard, all this sort of cosmology of the 20th century. Is that even science? Electric Universe people will say, no, that is not science. Well, I don't think it's science, personally. But we will see what Amy thinks in relation to her view. This is Amy, who I interviewed before. Her father worked for T.T. Brown. In relation to the work of T.T. Brown, which seems to have been on the Electric Universe level. So let's take a look at this interview. It's just so amazing, I think, how science is driving forwards, but it's only going to drive forwards if we have the courage to talk about new topics. So, guys, enjoy.
Okay, so our next guest is Amy Amaterasu Solar, and of YouTube, of Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come. She has her own forum. What was that forum called again?
Tapurit.boards.net.
Tapurit.boards.net. Welcome, Amaterasu Solar, and thank you for being on the show again. You gave us an incredible interview last time about Thomas Townsend Brown, a brilliant American inventor of electric gravity and other ideas, and you've talked about psychopaths in control. Today you're going to talk about something absolutely amazing. Would you like to kick it off?
Certainly. And thank you for having me. Basically what I wanted to discuss today was the fact, as I mentioned in a previous in one of the previous shows, that money accounts for human energy. Add free energy, you wind up with no need to account for human energy, because it becomes like accounting for grains of sand, which is pretty pointless. And this is the reason that the psychopaths in control have avidly suppressed and hidden any free energy developments. In fact, there are a number of ways to draw the energy that we swim in. The whole universe is a pool of energy, but they don't want us to know that. And that's one reason why they put the Einstein character out with his theories and touted them as being awesomely true, because they don't predict if this energy available, things wouldn't cost anything, because 100% of the cost of everything is energy. 100%. When you get down to the root of it, it's the energy, either mainly human energy, that is the cost.
Wow.
So, yeah, they do not want us to know that we can free ourselves of our wage slavery, which presently they try to indoctrinate us into the slave's creed they call the work ethic to keep us slaving away off it. And if we if we just accept that, then we are destined to be slaves upon our planet, which, by the way, our planet belongs to everyone who was born on or within its soils. And the church way back, like somewhere, I think it was the 900s. I'm not really sure exactly of the date, but they were fully aware that this planet belonged to everyone. But they decided that they could set up a trust for everybody. And so they started up the Unum Sanctum Trust. And when that wasn't covering everything that they needed it to, they added the Sestui KV trusts as well. And basically, if we don't say that we are adults and ready to take on our share of our planet when we turn 18, we've got to do that, and then us dead. And this is where you get a lot of the, we're all dead type symbolism and lyrics and stuff like that. Or, you're dead. Don't worry, you're dead.
Wow. And of course, the Beatles specialized in that in the late 60s, didn't they?
Yep. And it
Wow.
has not to do with the fact that we're dead per se, because we're not. I'm living. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure you are. But because legally we are dead. So they now, since we're dead, they can take the planet and do with it as they will, because we've lost out on our share of what's going on here on our planet. Now, of course, if you get rid of money by adding the free energy, you wind up with the ownership of land becoming not very important unless it's the land you're living on. I mean, consider, if there's no money, what is the point in owning that apartment building across town? You're not going to collect any rent,
Yeah.
Owning anything, what's the purpose of owning that, 40 acres in the boondocks?
It's amazing how this is tied into Einstein and how they used him to set the agenda. And indeed
yes.
they pushed him so hard into the media as a kind of mad. Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think that he was the quote genius that they claimed he was. I think he was an actor that was cast in that role. Just so you know where I'm coming from on that.
Well, they could be something to that, because some people say many of his equations they are derived from Maxwell's equations. They are derived from other physicists, and that it is stated that he presented many of his theories in simply a different. He sort of paraphrased them, didn't he? He sort of he sort of used their work in a way, presented it in a unique way, but it was kind of in a way already there, wasn't it?
Well, yes and no, because I do know that a full half of Maxwell's equations were tossed down the drain with Heaviside and I forget the other guy's name, through and sort of rings. And I think the visions that were given to that Einstein is said to have come up with were given to him. to present as his theory, so that, like, I have this wacky, genius character going on about these things, and this guy came up with the answers. Yeah, they're called theories, but they're really true. They're theories. Oh, speaking of that, there is a contender for a series of theories that explain better what we see. Dr. Paul A. Laviolette has come out with what he calls subquantum kinetics, where he took the chemical kinetics, and applied them downwards to the subatomic level, and discovered things like, he discovered that it predicted the Biefeld-Brown effect. Now, at first he was stunned because he'd never heard of the Biefeld-Brown effect or T. Townsend Brown.
To take us into that as well, please, the Biefeld-Brown effect.
Well, that's where you apply a high voltage across a dielectric with two electrodes, a negative and a positive at either end. And depending on the K value of your dielectric and its nonlinearity and the nonlinearity of your electrodes, you can get some extreme power out with very little power going in, creating a gravity bubble where everything wants to fall towards the positive plate, which as it falls in that direction, the plate moves in that direction, so it keeps falling, is basically how it works in there. At any rate, now I've forgotten where I was going with that. It's all your fault.
Going on about Laviolette?
Oh, yes. He came up with subquantum kinetics, and like I said, he predicted the Biefeld-Brown effect, which is basically the foundation for electrogravitics. And he had never heard of T. Townsend Brown or any of that. He was thinking that there was something wrong with his equations. And then he discovered T. Townsend Brown in the work, and he says, there's experimental proof of exactly what I'm saying should happen. So he felt better about the universe when he discovered that, no, he didn't make an error. He's got proof that that's what happens. It also, there are many other mysteries, and I can't think of any right offhand, but I do know that Laviolette has a list of mysteries that the Einsteinian perspective brings up that he has explanations for in SQK, subquantum kinetics, SQK. Anyway, so yeah, I have to give his stuff much higher probability of being correct than the Einsteinian hogwash. I know that SQK starts with an ether, which, they keep trying to tell us, no, there's no ether. But there is.
There must be.
Yes. Well, and in fact, they redid the Michelson-Morley experiment, which they used to prove that there was no ether back in the day, with much more sensitive equipment and, a greater degree of evaluation data, and discovered that, oh, actually, yeah, there is an ether, but they don't put that out on the nightly news.
They don't.
Because that would mean the Einstein stuff is wrong.
And this is amazing, because throughout the 20th century, physicists have always grappled with the problem that Einstein's theories, elegant as they are not and Einstein was aware of this, are not compatible, unless he was an actor, with quantum mechanics and quantum and now they're going on about this newer type of quantum mechanics, quantum field theory, do you feel that within the next few years, the Einstein physics is going to be exposed as a facade?
Well, that's a good question because, yeah, there are pockets of people who are realizing that Einstein's physics are, should be tossed out with the trash. But they keep indoctrinating the students in school that that's the be all and the end all. And they're certainly not telling people about the problems that are arising with the Einsteinian perspective. So, within the next few years, only if we can get rid of their control. And I do think that once awareness reaches the tipping point that we can create better on our planet and get rid of money, that it'll be about 10 years before it's fully implemented.
Yeah. Now we've recently had the unfortunate death of Stephen Hawking, and
well,
I've always thought myself that if they wanted to have an avatar pumping out propaganda, now this is going to sound bad, but if they ever wanted to have an avatar pumping out propaganda, they could. A guy that doesn't move is perfect for that, right?
Yes.
I mean, surely. But assuming totally genuine, and he did say a lot of strange things towards the end of his life. He mentioned aliens, he mentioned other sorts of things, but he was purely he was a mathematician. He was a clever mathematician. But I noticed he never ever went into electric universe. He never discussed plasma cosmology. He never discussed electric universe, despite his own interest in some alternate things, such as dystopian scenarios, such as aliens, problems of artificial intelligence. He never talked about electric universe, which would have overturned many of his theories. Could I ask your opinion on electric universe, plasma cosmology, Stephen Hawking?
Okay, well, as far as the electric universe and the plasma thing, I give that by leaps and bounds the highest probability. I think that the purely gravitational model absolutely does not explain what we see, and that the electric universe model does a marvelous job at doing so. And as far as Hawking is concerned, given that, let's see, he had ALS, right?
Yeah.
Given that approximately 90+% of people that are diagnosed with it last maybe 2 years, and there's been a few people that made it 5 years, I'm not buying that this one man just happened to survive, what, 50, 60, a lot of years. I'm not buying that. And in fact, if you look at pictures of Hawking around the time that he was diagnosed and given, by the way, about 2 years to live, and images of what he wound up always looking like sitting in that chair that we saw him over and over and over again in, it looks to me that they're two different people.
Wow.
And I think what they did was they had this guy who was sympathetic because of his ALS and noteworthy because of his intellect and what he did manage to bring forth while he was still with us. And they put a character on the stage, called that character Stephen Hawking, and wasn't it easy to do? The guy in the chair was in no condition to say, "Hey, no, wait a minute, I'm Joe Smith," or
Wow.
I don't think he would. I think the actor, I mean, who knows? Maybe that wasn't even a real person. It could have been a dummy. in that chair. How would we know? Right?
Well, we didn't.
He's
We
just sitting
certainly,
there.
bad as it sounds, we certainly didn't have much access to him. You do have a point.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that, you know, considering the fact that I have established that virtually everything that we are told is part of a play on this planet, trying to motivate us towards certain things, written probably by the ones above, the psychopaths that we see that are in control on the planet. They could say, oh, look how fortuitous, let's write this guy into our script and we can use him to tell people whatever we want, and they'll believe him.
All the world's a stage,
Right?
and we're but the actors, indeed. And something else I've just
Well, we're not,
yep.
hold on, we're not the actors. Are the people playing out this play on the stage. We are the audience. And it is a participatory audience.
Yeah. Something that occurred to me, getting back to the Einstein Hawking thing, we've had so the early part of the 20th century was dominated by Einstein, and this led to the Big Bang Theory, which is although that's not totally explained by relativity, now they call it I believe they call it expansion theory, because there was a sudden expansion and then relativity took over. But then they got into, but in the 80s, we started seeing Stephen Hawking. And Stephen Hawking is a kind of successor and sort of approver of what Einstein was supposed to have been saying, because the whole black hole thing, the Einstein-Rosen bridge, all this stuff, his Hawking's work was kind of a verification of Einstein, and therefore he was pushed. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that the like I think Einstein was an actor given a part. I think they took Hawking and gave whoever it was that took over when Hawking himself passed away, because I'm sure he didn't make it too many years past the diagnosis, 10 at the very most, and that's really pushing it, and used him to add some spice here and there, but mainly retain that perspective, so that nobody will say, hey, wait a minute, there's an ether here and we can draw on the ether all the energy that we could possibly use, and we don't need oil, and we don't need natural gas, and we don't need wind, and we don't need solar. I'm led to believe the manufacturing of the solar collectors is very, very filthy for our environment. Just so you know, solar is, it may not look bad when you're actually getting the energy, but when you're creating what it takes to get it, not pretty. Anyway, I think that they were both characters that were put on the stage.
Yeah. Now, I just find it absolutely amazing because, you know, a few years ago, they were telling us that now Nikola Tesla is extremely popular, but in the 80s and 90s, he was completely unknown. And he only came to the forefront because of the internet. And it's because of the internet that I suppose the people have found out about him, and suddenly he is extremely popular.
Yeah.
I had not heard.
By the way, when I was in high school, which was back in about it was junior high school, so it would have been in the 60s somewhere. They had a presentation at my junior high school where we all went into the auditorium, and they did a presentation on Nikola Tesla and his work, and had the the Tesla coil thingy, and it was fascinating. And so I knew about Tesla, but then I didn't hear anything about him for decades. So I was a little more prepared, I suppose, than most to grasp Tesla and what he meant. So, but yeah,
Wow.
the net has really released awareness of him to the larger number of people on this planet.
The net is amazing. Without the net, we would never know about electric universe. We would never know. And I
absolutely love the net.
It's incredible. And but before you mentioned him in the previous interview, I must admit I had never heard of Thomas Townsend Brown, that the man your father worked with, who talked about ionic drift, ionic wind, the Byfield-Brown effect, electrogravitics, electrohydrodynamics, ion propulsion lifters, unbelievable things. Who had this island laboratory? That was an unbelievable interview. That blew me away. And yes, then it became obviously became a bit of a secret, probably a state secret, and that was that for the next 60 years, and all the people who made it a secret are now gone.
Yep.
I mean, that is just absolutely incredible, and because it was suppressed, it did not enter the popular consciousness, and no one learned it. None of the physicists learned it. None of the engineers learned it.
True.
And hence we do not use this technology today because of that's unbelievable. Do you think that some of the work of Thomas Townsend Brown is going to come to the fore in the next few years, and people will start to pick up on him?
Well, I certainly am hoping so, but I do know that the psychopaths in control have a vested interest in making sure it doesn't happen. So we'll see. We will see. Let's hope that the universe rectifies positively in that regard.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there, and thank you so much, Amy, for being on the show again, and I hope to talk to you again in future about so many more things. You're incredibly intelligent. I love to pick your brains. I'm sure the audience is enjoying themselves. And what was the name of your forum again?
Tapyourit.boards.net is the address, and that make sure you spell your correctly. It's YOURE. Tap TAPYOUREIT
Amazing. Okay, thank you, Amaterasu, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
You do the same, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you for watching that segment. So happy. Join us again next time for another beautiful episode of the Dr. Charles Show. We are going to see what my friend Kimberly has been getting up to in Peru and Colombia, visiting some amazing sites. We're going to look through those pictures, and we're going to see what's going on with those pictures. Cheers, guys. Testing. Testing.